Hey, y'all. Matt. Yeah, Massive Beers. Here for a beer review, I guess. Sort of. Because there's beer involved. It's down here. Yeah, I wasn't going to make a video today. But Armand from Drie died today. That's kind of weird. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm like the biggest like goose lambic head in the world, but I've always been a big fan of Drie and Armand and what they do and the kind of beer they make and the kind of influence they have in the world. And it was just weird to see. He hasn't been in great health for the past several years, so it's not like it was a super surprise, but at the same time, it's not something you've really come to expect. And it's just waking up to that. It's kind of weird. There's a lot of influential people when it comes to beer, whether it be, beer makers, blenders, journalists, you go through it. But there's kind of like a Mount Rushmore and, he's kind of on there, when it comes to, just international beer more than anything, obviously, when it comes to Goose, a little Grandpa Goose up in this piece. And it's just kind of a bummer, because it's going to, last time someone passed of that stature, it's been quite some time. So, on the, when they posted about it on their social media, they said, when you see this post, open something good and think of the good times and like drink something good. So we're going to open something. I don't have any Drie in the cellar. I don't have anything like that, but I figured I'd go with something as close as I could with that. So we're going to actually be doing a little bit of Buried Acorn brewing. Yeah, this is their Ghoster Blanc. It's a 5.5% mixed culture, mixed fermentation, farmhouse ale, aged in wine barrels. So you can see that right there. And figured I'd crack this and drink it and talk about it and just kind of talk about, beer. Beer in general. I mean, we talk about that all the time. So this was sent to me by Sean from Buried Acorn. So I'm kind of curious to see where this sucker lands. Probably, I don't think it's going to be goozy, but it's probably the most closest thing I have in the cellar. So that's what y'all getting. Label-wise, it's cool. I like the labels they're doing on their kind of sour fermented series with the angle, nice linen labels and all that kind of stuff. So I'm a big fan as far as that beer goes. Just looks the part of a nice golden sour, mixed firm, kind of yellow, soft carbonation, pinky finger of white head, on point. Curious to see what kind of wine barrel. Probably Chardonnay, something like that. Let's see. Really vinous. A little bit of goozy notes in there. Tart, sour, mixed firm. Almost like you're getting a big dollop of like wood here. A decent amount of vanilla. And a vinous that's a little bit more grapey than the actual processed wine portion of the show. It's very much more grapey than actual vinous. Sweet. But there's an acidic portion of the show here. I'm going to attribute that to a yeast kind of perception thing. I think there's going to be an acidic thing that just kind of comes off kind of yeasty. I don't think it's like a hot presence or anything like that. But actually kind of reminds me, I'm not, maybe it's a little placebo effect of, a brighter kind of version of something that Drie would make. Taco, stop eating sticks. He eats everything, man. God damn it, Taco. Anyway, but yeah, let's just dive in. Nice and bright. Cheers. Oh, man. See, I like that. It is very vinous. When I talked about that grape portion of the show being there and being the star of the show, at least on the nose, it is more of the wine portion of the show in the actual taste. It's not super duper dry. It's not super like caustic. I know that's a bad word to use when it comes to beer, at least when you're talking about it in a positive light. But, wine for me is very kind of harsh. It always has been. I'm not a big wine guy. I haven't delved too big into the wine world, so I can't sit here and talk about intelligently why I don't like wine or not. But it has more of kind of like a sweeter wine kind of effect to it. It has that tartness. It has that vinous characteristic. It's a little bit more sweeter. Think like maybe plum wine, something like that. A little bit more kind of outside of your classic kind of wine region. Something a little bit sweeter, but it's not a sweet beer. There's that big white grapiness. It's got to be some Chardonnay level kind of barrel that they use. That big vanilla portion of the show, that oakiness in the actual nose, that follows through. A little bit smaller than what the nose brings you, but it's so gigantic. I don't think it'll live up to that. But there is a big, huge dollop of oak in there. There's a big dryness, and there's this nice, rich kind of vanilla. That kind of, I guess, that probably adds a perception of sweetness to the beer. And it just comes off really nice. It's super drinkable. It's like very, very, very drinkable. There's nothing about it that is like, again, with the word caustic, but there's nothing about it harsh. It's very soft, very drinkable, and kind of an appropriate beer, to be perfectly honest. You know, this is, I think this is the second mixed firm or sour or whatever you want to call it beer that I'm opening from Acorn. But the first one I opened was actually a wine beer blend. So I wasn't quite sure where this beer was going to land. And it's landing exactly where I personally wanted to land for this moment. Like I said, to kind of pivot back to the kind of opening and talk about, Drie Fonteinen and where they exist in my world. Because I know there's a lot of people that are more kind of, lambic nerds and, like goose snobs and stuff like that. But it's always been a beer thing. Always existed in my life, when Shelton Brothers and the like started bringing over the Cantillons of the world and the Fantômes, and then, you have Drie Fonteinen kind of come in the United States. It was definitely something that was in my orbit during my beer kind of come uppets, and something I really did enjoy. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's not something that I sought out a ton in the early years, but the more I got into beer and more I got past that initial kind of sprint, when you originally get into beer, it's like you want to try everything, and then you start to figure out what you like. Drie Fonteinen, it was always kind of like something that was a little bit more personal to drink for me. It wasn't like something like, I brought bottles to bottle shares and, share them with friends, obviously, but it always tended to be a beer that, in a brewery, that like I would open for my own self, by myself, and just drink it over the course of, a couple hours or whatever it is. And, whether it be listening to music or, just fiddling with things and just sitting and kind of having my own kind of time by myself in my head. It was appropriate for that. First nice day, I do the first beer review of the new stuff on the outside, and the mosquitoes. I can't believe the mosquitoes exist already. There's like 1 billion of them. It's been like freezing all the time, but I digress. But yeah, it's always been a contemplative beer. Something that was a little bit more than just like drink that, move on kind of thing. And I think that's probably the best. I shouldn't say the best, because there's always, hair on fire roller coaster stuff is always fun, but contemplative beer, is something you drink and you think about and you enjoy, and whether it be with friends or solo. Some of the more, I don't know. I don't want to use the word serious. I don't want to use the word important. But it's just something that's a little bit different. And, with the beer world being as it is now, everybody's so, let's do this, let's try that, take that, do all that kind of stuff. To have this specific genre of beer that, for me, and I know a lot of other people, is something that is a bit more, like I said, contemplative, something you kind of drink and think about and enjoy in a kind of singular space. I think that's important. Combine that with, I don't think a lot of modern beer would exist without those kind of, those Belgian Seine Valley kind of Drie Fonteinen breweries that are kind of always been a center point, like a grounding rod of beer. How crazy things can get on the edges, and you always have that kind of that more lack of words, more centered, more solid core that is always there to kind of keep everything kind of in check and be like, don't take it too seriously. Even though there's nobody more serious about beer than Goose Nerd. Like, God forbid you say something wrong in the Goose Nerd world, you're gonna get ripped to shreds. Yeah, it's just always been something that's always been a little bit more kind of like personal. I don't know. So, when anybody passes, even if you've never met them, and I've never met them, but I know a lot of people have, and somebody passes that had such influence in your life, and you don't realize it sometimes until that person passes. It's just like anything else, whether it be a musician, artists, stuff like that, and Armand was one of those people. So, just felt the need to make a video out here in Mosquitoville, and just raise one. Say cheers. Hopefully you enjoy your next adventure, whatever it may be. And just know you made pretty good stuff. Made a lot of people happy. And the world was a better place. So, there you go. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this kind of talk and review and all that kind of fun stuff. And Buried Acorn, sorry to use one of your beers for this. Or maybe it's the opposite. I'd be like, holy shit, he chose our beer to do this. I don't know, but it seemed appropriate. It ended up being the perfect beer for the perfect situation, so I appreciate it. So there you go. So, yeah, if any of y'all have never had Drie Fonteinen, go seek some out, drink it, experience it. Even if you don't like it, it's just something you want to experience, and do a little digging, looking into the old Papa Goose, and yeah, onward and upward. Spiritually, figuratively, and literally. So there you go. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and we'll see you next time. Cheers, y'all.